Today, we're on the ground for day 2 of the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, Tennessee. We sit down with Robert Mitchnick, BlackRock's head of digital assets, to discuss the asset manager's plans for more crypto ETFs. And Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty lays out what he thinks U.S. crypto regulation should look like. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos on location at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee for day 2 of the crypto conference. This is the first day that the conference hall is open to everyone, and organizers are expecting about 20,000 people to show up. So today is when we start to hear from Bitcoin miners, crypto exchanges, and a whole host of lawmakers who are looking to expand crypto regulation and innovation. Senators Marsha Blackburn, Tim Scott, and Bill Hagerty are taking the stage at the event. Of course, this all leads up to the big headliner tomorrow, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, who in recent months has positioned himself as a pro-crypto candidate for president. He'll be here addressing Bitcoin fans on the final days of this conference, and will bring you coverage of that speech on Monday. A Trump campaign aide told CNBC the former president raised more than $4 million in crypto so far, most of it in Bitcoin, but his campaign can accept contributions in a range of other cryptocurrencies, including Ether, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu coin, and the US dollar peg stablecoin USDC. Trump's campaign got significant donations from big names in the industry, including crypto billionaire twins Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, who each contributed more than 15 Bitcoin, or just over $1 million at the time of their donation. Now, because their contributions surpassed the $844,600 limit, a filing indicates that the money was partially refunded. Mike Belshi, CEO of digital asset security company BitGo, contributed $50,000 in Bitcoin. Now, this afternoon at the conference, another presidential candidate accepting crypto donations, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He will speak to the crowd. The independent candidate's campaign announced last May that it would accept Bitcoin contributions. And we'll have more from this conference in just a bit, but first let's get a quick check of the markets. Crypto prices in the green to end the week, with Bitcoin climbing back to the $67,000 level as of noon Eastern. Ether rose more than 3.5% to the $3,200 level on the 4th day after spot Ether ETFs started trading here in the US. And Solana, it soared more than 6.5% to $181. Now, taking a look at those spot ETH ETFs from issuers including Grayscale, BlackRock, and Fidelity, all are in the green today, a reversal from yesterday, up by about 4% as of noon Eastern. For the week, Bitcoin is up slightly, and Ether dropped more than 7.5% as of noon. Solana, however, is up more than 6% for the week. All right, jumping straight into our conversations here at Bitcoin 2024, I sat down with Robert Mitchnick, head of digital assets for BlackRock, yesterday afternoon. Of course, BlackRock was one of the asset managers that launched a spot Ether ETF here in the US this week. We talked all about that and whether BlackRock might launch other crypto ETFs in the future. So we saw this blockbuster debut of spot Bitcoin ETFs. They launched in January. You guys are in the lead. Talk to me about how you feel about the launch and how it's gone in the last 7 months.
Yeah, well, obviously we've been pleased with how the iShares Bitcoin Trust has done. We had high expectations for the level of client demand that we would see, given over many years we'd had clients expressed interest in being able to access Bitcoin in an accessible, convenient way. But I would say this even exceeded our rather high expectations for it.
And you surpassed Grayscale in May, still maintaining that lead at this point. What's next for you guys on the spot Bitcoin ETF front? Just keep riding this wave, or are looking to get wealth managers to make a portfolio allocation recommendation?
Yeah, well, it's still very early actually in the client adoption journey, which is interesting, even with all the success that it's had. If you think about our 3 segments across iShares, being really end investors, wealth advisory, and institutions, that first channel right out of the gates came on very, very strong. And that was everything from small dollar retail to ultra high net worth with very large positions. But we talk about wealth advisory or institutions, we're still very early days. Institutions are on an education, diligence, research journey. We're playing a big part in helping them through that. And wealth advisory, typically it takes multiple years on some of the biggest platforms to get approval for new ETFs. Many of our large partners there are accelerating their efforts to go through that approval process. but they're still not there yet. So there's actually a long way to go in terms of our client journey.
I've been speaking with some of the other issuers about exactly that and this due diligence window, and they say that the most aggressive of those that are going through this process right now say that it could be 3 to 6 months. Does that just seem overly ambitious? What's a more realistic expectation for how long it might be until these recommendations can be made?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we're 6 months in now since the Bitcoin ETFs launched. We're 2 days in since the Ethereum ETFs launched. As I said, normal timeline would be multiple years. Those have been expedited by a bunch of firms. So, could it happen this year? Certainly it could.
Why do you think your product is resonating over some of the others that are out there?
Yeah, well, certainly investors have been resoundingly choosing IBIT for Bitcoin access, and I think that comes from a combination of us being both obviously a leading player, the number one leading player in ETF markets globally, plus the capabilities that we marry that with in terms of digital asset space, having built, starting in 2021, Coinbase Prime capabilities into our Aladdin investment system that allowed this product to run on the same operating and risk platform that the other 1,300 plus iShares ETFs globally do.
So you mentioned that Tuesday we saw the launch of spot Ether ETFs here in the US. And my question is, the SEC is not comfortable with having the Ether that lives in an ETF be staked. And to me, that's what a lot of investors find is one of the most appealing aspects of having exposure to Ether, that you're earning this yield on that investment. What do you think? Is that going to be a headwind for adoption, or is it just a matter of time until the SEC gets on board with staking? I'm just trying to work out the calculus here of why somebody would park money in a spot Ether ETF when they're missing out on this huge perk.
Yeah. Well, staking is an interesting feature of Ethereum and other proof-of-stake blockchains. But it's not something that's universally done by any stretch, even before these ETFs existed. When you look at all the supply of Ether today, only about 29% of that is actually staked today. So certainly existing investors, many of them are staking, but even a larger majority are not.
Now, when BlackRock put in an application last summer, it was this seismic shift in the conversation, because up until then, it was unclear where the SEC was going to land on this. It seemed to be this really helpful push when BlackRock joined the group of applicants. And my question to you is, how did you get BlackRock comfortable with this kind of investment?
Well, I think if you look at our journey in digital assets across multiple years, we were building towards this moment. And if you think of, as I mentioned, that partnership with Coinbase to build the technological capabilities around crypto trading and custody support, the launch of our Bitcoin private trust in 2022, the partnership we have with Circle on the stablecoin front, the work we've done in tokenization, all those things were in response to technology transformation that was happening in the ecosystem, plus client demand that existed for access solutions. The Bitcoin ETF was a very logical progression of that.
Are you planning other digital asset offerings?
Well, if you think about where our clients are today, they are overwhelmingly most interested in Bitcoin, certainly some significant interest in Ether as well, and very little beyond that in sort of the long tail of crypto assets that exist. And so for now, this is certainly where we are. In time, maybe some of those smaller assets grow to a point where they would be fit for purpose, but there's a pretty big gap today between Bitcoin, then ETH, then everything else in terms of liquidity, track record, maturity, et cetera.
There's this perception that Wall Street was really staying on the sidelines until they could get hard and fast rules from Congress, and we're starting to see some progress there, but nothing has made it to the finish line in terms of being signed into law. A lot of the conversations that I'm having on the ground here keep coming back to politics and how excited people are that crypto has become such a big part of the conversation in this presidential election cycle. Donald Trump is headlining Bitcoin 2024 this Saturday in Nashville, holding a big fundraiser. How important is it that crypto has become a part of the conversation in this 2024 election?
Well, I think it is a necessary conversation to be had from a legislative and regulatory framework in terms of building out a regulatory construct that supports innovation happening here in the U.S. and puts the appropriate guardrails around it. And I think the biggest thing that we've seen in 24 is that this not only is being viewed as a more legitimate and important issue, but that transformation has actually become now bipartisan in nature.
And this morning I sat down with U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, where he discussed crypto regulation and what he thinks about this year's Bitcoin conference being held in the volunteer state. So Senator Hagerty, we are in your home state of Tennessee. The Bitcoin 2024 conference has migrated from many years in Miami to Nashville. How are you feeling about playing host to this event?
Oh, I couldn't be more excited. We've got over 20,000 visitors here. The energy at the conference is just through the roof. And everyone I've talked with has had just such a wonderful time being here in Tennessee. They've enjoyed the events in Nashville. As you said, you've been here for a couple of days already, and I'm just thrilled to see so many people come here and enjoy the energy of the city and this state, and realize that this state is a place for innovation like none other. This is the perfect place for the conference. I hope it stays for many, many years to come.
One thing that I find so interesting about your background is that you were showing up at events in this industry. You were having this conversation. You were engaging with people who are practitioners within the crypto ecosystem well before it was popular. I mean, it's a very popular and sticky talking point now in the last few months, pegged to the presidential election cycle. So how did you feel about being a first mover?
Well, the potential here is absolutely enormous. And as you and I talked privately before, I was the Commerce Secretary of Tennessee at one point in time, the head of economic development for the state. And one of the things that we've been trying to create here is a hotbed of innovation. We want to make this place the home of entrepreneurial activity. And if you think about the basic DNA of a Tennessean, it actually matches very well with the people that are here at the Bitcoin conference. We love freedom, we love liberty, we love innovation and entrepreneurism. That's exactly what's happening here. That's what's being celebrated across the range here today. The technology itself has such tremendous potential. And the evolution of this technology is going to have incredible impact on productivity of workers. It's going to take us to the next level. I want to see that happen here in America, as much of it as I can in Tennessee, but certainly here in America, and not be pushed offshore because we can't get the regulatory infrastructure right. We've got regulators in Washington that are actually anti this industry, and we got to deal with that.
Why do you think it's only now that this has become a part of the dialogue around the presidential election? Why did the crypto voting block not matter quite as much, or was it at least a part of the media's portrayal of what mattered as candidates were crafting their platforms in past election cycles?
I think the biggest shift has been the fact that President Trump has come out and articulated the fact that we should be supportive of this industry. Before President Trump spoke, I don't think anybody had paid the type of attention that we're seeing right now. It's had a massive impact on the political class in Washington. And instead of creating a divide, I think it's actually creating some unity because it's forced the other side to take a harder look at this and realize there is a significant entrepreneurial community here that we should be embracing rather than pushing offshore. We've still got a massive job to deal with respect to our regulatory class, though, with their Operation Choke Point 2.0, everything they're doing to actually choke off this industry, because there are many in Washington that don't like decentralized solutions. They prefer centralized solutions, and we've got to deal with that. We've got to push back on it.
Were you part of why Trump started to speak about Bitcoin on the campaign trail?
I've been talking with President Trump about Bitcoin and about the cryptocurrency technology broadly for some time. The potential here, President Trump completely grasps. And he knows that we need to contain this, we shouldn't say contain, but we need to support the ecosystem that keeps the innovation happening here in America. And I think as I am, he's saddened to see a regulatory class in Washington that is doing everything it can to push it offshore. Innovators want to be here. The innovation should be happening here, and we want to create the environment so that it does.
So there's a lot of talk about what Senator Lummis might unveil in terms of new legislation. J.D. Vance has his own crypto bill. We've got Fit 21. Talk to me about what you think is realistic. What can we get to the finish line in this session?
Well, Senator Lummis has been a tremendous leader in this effort. She came into the Senate with a very clear goal of trying to help create an environment here. And I've been pleased to work alongside her. We sit next to each other in the Senate Banking Committee. She's going to, I'm sure, do a great job tomorrow on stage, and she's been a real leader in this space. A number of my Senate colleagues, as you mentioned, JD and others, have really stepped up to embrace this environment because they realize this will be a source of competitive advantage for America if we can work with it, encourage it rather than discourage it. What we need to do is stop the silent policing that's going on. And this is the regulatory pressure that's coming from the Fed, from the SEC. It's quiet. It's not been authorized by the Congress. This is just an anti-crypto, anti-Bitcoin viewpoint that is possessed by the current administration. That's got to come to an end. And the only way we're going to make that happen is by a change in November. But with the new administration, I feel certain that President Trump will put in place people at the SEC, at the CFTC, and at the Fed, to the extent possible, that will be pro this industry, that will be supportive of this industry, and that will change things immediately. The industry actually does need a regulatory framework and a structure, though. Absent that, I think it creates too much uncertainty. And for businesses to grow, they need certainty. So you'll see us move forward with a regulatory package, with a legislative package, I should say, that will support light touch, but a clear environment to move forward.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World this week from Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. We'll be back again on Monday with highlights from former President Trump's speech here at the conference, and we'll see you then.